Hey everybody, Hoosier Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm talking about episode 19 of season 2 of Young Justice. Alright, this is it, our penultimate episode, and I gotta say, this is a pretty darn good one. Stuff that's been building for the entire season, of course, naturally comes to a head here, and we get some really, really cool stuff going on. Again, this is another very plot-heavy episode, which is, of course, we're almost at the very end of the season, so a lot of people's character arcs are coming to a close. So it really makes sense that they're going to start really wrapping up the story aspects. But let's get right into it. Now, first of all, I totally love this confrontation between the light and the reach. I absolutely love stories where you get to have two factions of villains, two bad guys versus bad guys, evil versus evil. I absolutely love stories where you get to see stuff like that. And this is really, really just a real top-notch take on that. The way the light calls the reach out on just all the really stupid things that they've done. Now, granted, it's not the whole picture there, but it's certainly quite satisfying to see that. Now, not that the Reach doesn't get in a few good knocks here and there too, but still, the Reach have really had that coming for a long time. Their method for taking over the Earth is fairly clever. They really do play the long game, but at times, I'd have to say it really has been needlessly overcomplicated. But anyway, now, one thing that I liked is that out of all of the people who had noticed that it was something was fishy about what was going on with Artemis, since Blackbriar Thorn and Clarion don't really seem to be prone to, Blackbriar Thorn, ugh. Well, Clarion, the magic using types among the light don't really seem to hang around all that much. I mean, Clarion does show up briefly, but he doesn't even say anything. Though I strongly suspect that was simply a cost-saving measure. But keep in mind, Ra's al Ghul is a guy who's been alive for thousands of years, and he is very well versed in supernatural stuff. Now, Vandal Savage has been around even longer, but he's really, that's just not really Vandal Savage's type of thing. He's honestly been portrayed as more of a just sort of a generic mastermind, and sometimes as a little bit of a mad scientist. Anything with mysticism isn't really his thing. Well, Ra's al Ghul, in many ways, has always been portrayed as just sort of the ultimate mad alchemist. If you're familiar with him and his Lazarus Pits from the Batman comics and TV shows, well, you understand that's how he's kept himself alive all these centuries. And his servant, Ubu, is not wrong in saying that Ra's al Ghul will probably be back. Honestly, the only real complaint I have is about the way they portrayed Ra's al Ghul is it really did seem like he was kind of behaving in a way that's a little bit cowardly right before Black Beetle struck him down. Now, granted, at first it starts off he's just trying to reason with people, but well, anyway, if there's one thing that you can say about Ra's al Ghul is that he is not a coward. He is, he's a guy with a lot of guts. He's a guy who has no fear about going toe-to-toe with Batman. And yeah, smart people do not screw with Batman. So let's leave it at that. Now, I do like that it was really confirmed that G. Gordon Godfrey's smackdown of the Reach ambassador was confirmed to be part of the Light's plan, which is an idea I'd kind of thrown out there earlier, and I'm really pleased to have seen that I was right about that one. Now, one thing I do have to complain about during this big confrontation is I think they used a real serious cheat where they basically tell us that off-screen Aqualad took down Deathstroke all by himself. I mean, okay, he might have had Artemis' help, but seriously, the way it sounded, it really did seem as if Aqualad had done that himself. And, Deathstroke, we've seen just how insanely badass Deathstroke is. So, for Aqualad to just sort of do that and us get no idea or clue how he did it, that just seems like, as I said, kind of a cheat. I mean, if it had been, him and Deathstroke had some, awesome knockdown drag out fight, then it really would have been awesome to see that. On the other hand, if you just slip some sleeping pills in Deathstroke's coffee, then I can kind of understand why they did that. But again, there's no real mention made of just how he pulled this off, and I think that's something that really... Well, okay, there's only so many minutes in this episode, so I can understand why they just sort of glossed over that, but again, that's sort of, as well, yeah, at the risk of repeating myself for a third time, it just plain feels like a cheat. But hey, speaking of the big confrontation, when everything was just really bam, bam, bam going, did you guys notice how great the music was? I mean, it was really brief, but it really, really, I think, charged that scene and just made it even more awesome. And it's scenes like that that really remind me of why it is I love superhero stories. It's just this wonderfully awesome, over-the-top, Clash of the Titans sort of thing. And I mean that in the metaphorical sense, not the modern movie. Well, the movie sense in anyway, okay? But anyway, it's just... I remember that people have said, and particularly the comic book writer Grant Morrison have said that, superheroes are a way of us sort of telling stories about modern gods in a way. And here, this is perfectly illustrated. If this was what this is what gods battling would look like, is really the best way you can put it. And it is awesome. Then, not to mention all the twists and turns. Just when you think that, the one side has the advantage, the other side turns it around. It was great. It was just like a really well-written, complicated thriller. And they're pulling this off, again and again over the course of just a couple of minutes, which made the scene so exciting and so riveting to watch. I loved it. The writing team really, really pulled out all the stops on that one, and it came off wonderfully. Now we do get our few little characterization moments. We get to see Kid Flash and Artemis reunited after so long, and they're right back at sort of bickering, but obviously deeply in love, which was really refreshing, because that was seeing that relationship having matured really was a very satisfying aspect of the show earlier this season. And of course, we also got to see another great moment between Kid Flash and Impulse, where he essentially hands the mantle of Kid Flash over to Bart, which is fitting because Bart did eventually in the comics take up the mantle of Kid Flash. Now let's see. We also get to see Aqualad being acknowledged by the team as as having pulled off an absolutely amazing feat. And of course, Aqualad, in a way, I think is a little bit of a perfectionist to a degree. His mind immediately leaps to what he didn't accomplish. And of course, it was really great seeing his team try and cheer him up and all that. But we get to see that this is still a tainted victory for him, because he did have to clash and fight his own father. And he even acknowledges that he'd seen his father's more noble side. So, as much as a win as this might be for, good as a whole, he's really destroyed that close bond that he was able to forge, albeit under false pretenses, with his father. And, any way, shape, or form that you cut it, that's gotta hurt. And, we surprisingly get to see a decent bit of characterization from Black Beetle here. Now, this is something that's actually been percolating a little bit. Like last week, the last episode, I should say, you even hear him grudgingly say, "The Beetles are live to serve." He really was, for quite a while, not on board with how the Reach Ambassador was handling things. And here he just literally relieves the guy of command and is off to go and destroy the Earth. And I gotta say, it was certainly pretty satisfying just to see the sheer absolute horror in the Reach Ambassador's eyes when he sort of realized just how completely screwed he was. But Black Beetle, I think, has really just sort of been portrayed as a somewhat sadistic goon. So seeing him sort of step up to be the last real major obstacle this season, that was something that I really liked. Now, granted, he's certainly always been, from his introduction, portrayed as a very serious threat. I mean, the first time we really get to see him in action, he completely smashes the team, wipes the floor with them. Bart had made it clear that in the future, Black Beetle was serious, serious bad news. but we'd only really seen him as a physical threat. Here we get to see that there's a brain inside this guy, and he's able to pull off one on the Reach Ambassador, who is seriously no slouch in the scheming and planning of things. So I think it's definitely going to be a really very interesting major throwdown next time. Looks like Aquaman was there, so it looks like the Justice League is back in business. So I'm hoping it'll be kind of like last time around with the big season finale. We get to see the two teams just really going to town on the bad guys. I think that would be a very fitting way for this season and sadly this show to come to a close. So anyway, folks, that's all I have for you this time. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. And until next time, take care and have a good one.